Welcome to Welcome to Business Success Navigators, brought to you by Empowering Business Inc. I'm Robyn Scobey, and today I am with Robert. Robert, can you introduce yourself to our guest, please?
You bet. My name is Robert Welke, and I'm with Megxit Inc.
And exactly what do you do?
I am a bit of a unicorn, quite frankly. My partner and I are business exit planning advisors who focus on enhancing value in a business so that the owner can sell successfully and transition out of their business successfully as well.
That is really wonderful. How long does that process normally take?
It can normally take anywhere between 2 and 5 years to actually implement. It depends on the current state of the business when we start working with them. But our ideal time frame is between 18 months to 24 months to get them ready and their business ready.
Mm-hmm. And what's that process looking like for the majority of people?
For the majority of people, it starts with an assessment of where they currently are. And what we do is we actually do what's called a readiness and attractive assessment, and we actually provide an opinion of value using some of the software tools we have available to us. From that, we generate a report that gives them an idea of what it is they need to do to get their business sorted out so it can sell successfully, right? Enhance some of the areas they need some enhancement or that need addressing. And it gives them a current value so they have a sense of, okay, if I want to retire in 5 years and I need X dollars and my company is worth X divided by 2, that means I have to do something to create value in my business. And that's really where we come in with the heavy lifting, is helping them transform the business and enhance the value of the business.
What happens if somebody isn't ready to sell in that 24 months? What's the process then?
Oh, we would continue with them, or ideally what we do is we teach them how to do it for themselves. So we give them a framework and a discipline that they can use to continue that work, even if they decide not to sell into the future. But the reason why we pick that 18 to 24 months as the time frame is because it takes at least that amount of time to instill the discipline and create the habits and the culture within the company that will continue to drive it forward with that value enhancement focus.
So when you're talking about those things that you would instill, what are some of those topics you think you might be having?
Well, we would start with helping them clarify their vision, their mission, and their strategic plan. Then from that strategic plan, we would identify the activities they need to address and or move forward with to get from where they are today to where they need to be. So we will talk with them and we would help them build great teams. We would help them understand the best structure for their business in terms of the organizational design. We will help them create and teach them how to have the conversations they need to have, and actually teach them how to communicate effectively within their teams. Then we work on team building and creating a discipline around actions and activities, and give them a framework on how they can actually move forward in incremental steps, because the secret is not moving forward all at once. The challenge with a lot of people is they have all these ideas, but they need to focus on 1 or 2 to start with and get those done effectively and then build on those things as they move forward. So as we move through that process, we'll walk through their target market strategies process. We'll help them understand where they're optimizing their business in terms of revenue. We'll help them understand if there's opportunities in different markets that they could take advantage of. We'll help them build good support systems and teams. Help them with their operational excellence within their firms, help them build good, solid culture. And we also have a leadership program that we've created, which is a 1-year, 22 module leadership program that teaches people how to be leaders within the company. So when we think about leaders, we think about leaders without titles. Everybody in the company needs to be a leader.
That is such a good point, because so many people I find feel like it's just part of their financial part to sell, but it is really so much more than just making sure you have a good profit and loss and balance sheet.
Well, it's interesting to say that, because as a member of the Exit Planning Institute and as a certified exit planning advisor, we've identified and they've identified there are 5 things that need to be worked on in a company. First and foremost is financial performance, because you have to have good financials or you don't even have table stakes, essentially, is what we like to say. But from there, there are four what we call intangible capitals that need to be optimized and within a company. And that includes your customer capital. How diverse is your customer base? How strong are they? What kinds of contracts do you have in place? What is their tenure? What is their loyalty? You have to build a great customer experience to attract and maintain customers. You can't have too high a diversification in you have to have good diversification in your customer base as well. Cannot be concentrated. Then we talk about social capital. What's your brand and your reputation in the marketplace? That's critically important. Nobody wants to buy a company with a poor reputation. Then there is the human capital, which is the people, the systems, the culture within the company, how you're structured, how people communicate, how well they work together, how teams evolve, and how they build things together, right? And create a good culture of excellence. And then the last one is the structural capital, as we call it, which is systems, your processes, your IP, all the things you've got in your company that make you unique. And how do you teach people how to do that? It's what we like to call your how we do it here manual, right? And how you train people, how you evolve people, how you select people, all that stuff is critically important to how successful your company is going to be.
That's so true. Actually, yesterday I had been talking with somebody in the HR department, and keeping your staff and having all those systems, because hiring somebody new is very costly and takes a huge amount of time. So how to have those manuals in place would be a really big part, especially if a new owner is coming in and taking over.
Oh, exactly. I mean, if they have a recipe for how to run a business successfully, that's the best thing an owner can want, right? And if you don't have that, a prospective owner is going to look at the business and go, okay, great, they've got a good business here, but how do they make money? How do they actually keep people? How do they develop their people? How do they get customers? They need to have a recipe for success. And that's why we call that this is how we do business here manual.
Mm-hmm. Now, I know as a business owner, sometimes the confidential part of it, I didn't really want my staff knowing when we were looking to sell. And I know that's a big concern for a lot of business owners. I have the loyalty with my staff, with my clients. They're all going to jump ship the minute they find out it's not me. How do you guys approach that?
Well, there's actually three things that we work on with a business owner, because three plans that need to be worked on. The first one is the owner's plan. And that plan is, how do they extract themselves from the business? And where are they going to be when they leave the business? So when you left your business, you probably had a purpose that you wanted to go to, or you may not have, but you found a new one afterwards. A business owner will never leave their business if they think their baby's still dependent upon them, right? And that's one of the things that we find a lot is business owners are so tied to their business, it's difficult for them to think outside their business. So we have to create a purpose for them to go to, right? So that's one, that's the personal plan. Then there's the personal financial plan, which is working with their personal financial advisor and their accountants. We identify what it is they actually need to have out of the business on an after-tax basis to make sure that their retirement or their life after work is successful financially, right? So those are two pieces that's where we work strictly with the business owner. The business plan is where my partner and I really focus most of our energy on the value enhancement piece. That's got nothing to do with the owner's plan to exit the business. That's got to do with turning the business into an extremely efficient, high functioning business where all the team members have a stake in the success of the business. And they actually, at the end of the day, will be kept in the business once the owner's gone, because they're the ones now driving the value of the business.
That's a really good
So
part.
they may not even know the owner is considering selling.
Mm-hmm.
We're brought to create value and to get good teams.
That's a really good way of putting it, because it is all about adding value. And when you add value to the company, it does roll down to the employees as well.
Absolutely. If you can create a solid culture within business of success-driven mentality, those people will want to remain with the business, and if they buy the business, will want to keep those people, because it's no longer about the owner, it's about the team.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the strategies you use to help make those teams become so solid, especially in today's world where finding employees is hard, never mind retaining them?
Well, first and foremost, we teach our people how to hire people properly. We actually create what we call role success scorecards, which are based on not only the jobs and the tasks that they have to perform, but what the deliverables are in that role and how that role aligns with the company values, right? It's critically important that whoever they hire and whoever they have in their business, that their values align with the company values. So if you can get everybody aligned with the company values and who have a clear idea of what they're supposed to be doing and how they're going to be measured on that, because that's an important part of the role success scorecard, is measuring their performance in the terms of what their role is within the business. So that's a part of it. Then we teach them how to top grade, how to hire people properly. You know, the process of hiring somebody is really expensive. And like you said, it's really expensive to replace somebody. Well, if you have somebody that you've spent 2 months looking to hire, you hire them on, they have to let them go 3 months later, it's going to cost you at least that amount to actually replace them, if not more. The statistics are pretty scary in that, and it's anywhere up to a year and a half worth of a person's salary to replace them, right?
That
If
is
you do it
really hard to hear.
yeah, which is if you do it wrong. So if you have a process that you can follow and you adhere to hiring properly, chances we minimize the chance of you getting a bad hire, right? Because there's clarity around the role and there's clarity around the culture and the values. Because if you don't bring somebody on who's aligned with your values, who's the high performer, then you're going to have troubles with that individuals. So that's part of it. And then we teach them how to work together as teams. And then we give them a discipline that they can use to make sure that they're moving forward at all times. And that's why we say it takes that 18 to 24 months, because you have to embed that behavior in the business. Because culture is simple. Culture is a real simple thing to describe. It is the behaviors that you accept, right?
Mhm.
At the end of the day, if you're accepting it, that becomes your culture. So culture is not nebulous. It is, how do you actually work with people and work alongside people? And it's the behaviors. Behaviors drive success.
Yeah, that is very true. Like when you talked about behaviors and it's what you allow and what you instill, some of those habits are ingrained in us, especially as a business owner. And then moving that forward and making sure that you are still keeping that positive attitude and that momentum going forward could be quite
Yeah.
challenging for a lot of business owners.
And that's why at the very beginning, we try to clarify their values, because then you can hold them up against the mirror and say, are you actually hiring people based on values? Are you firing people based on values? Because if you have a set of values and you don't adhere to them, if you're not firing based on those values, then you're not living those values, right?
Mhm.
Those values should be defining everything you do in your business.
That is so true. That clarifies a lot in that aspect for me, and I'm sure for a lot of our listeners, because we all can say we have the values, but do you walk those values? Those are two different things.
Exactly. So, I mean, there's lots of times I run across companies where they say, well, we don't allow bullying in our company, for example, right? We don't tolerate. Yet, if you look throughout the company, there are bullies, including sometimes the owner might even be a bully. So are you really living the values if you say that you don't have this, but you're not acting that way? Right. So at the end of the day, you've got to look at your actions and compare them against what you say that you believe in. If you can
Absolutely.
get a team that's got aligned values, it is absolutely incredible what you can accomplish with that team.
Hmm. And it going back to the first step is looking at how much money the company is making, I think does help implement those values going forward. Because if the business owner is so tight on their financials and they're stressed about making payroll, I think they're probably short and could become that bully without even knowing it.
Yeah, it will drive behaviors, right? So looking at the financial performance of the company and finding ways to make sure that they're profitable, they need to understand where their margins are, right? And they need to understand what makes the money so that they can actually build on that. So you've got to take that stress away to start with. And then once that stress is away, then you can start working on the other parts of the company. As I said, table stakes are financial performance.
Mm-hmm. And when you say their margins, it doesn't matter what business industry you are in. If you are selling a product versus selling a service, you still have those margins. Like I've heard, I can't figure out my margins because I'm not selling an item, I am selling my time. But there's
Oh
still
yeah, you can. I
margins
mean,
that go into that.
oh, absolutely. In fact, my last business was a service-based business. We were a technical services business. It was all about selling time for money, right? So it was about, okay, you need to understand what it costs you to put that person out there and what you need to charge to be able to cover all your costs and your profit margin, right? So we were always cognizant of what our margins were.
Absolutely. If you had to give anybody one tip, what would that tip be to help get ready
Have
to be able to phone you?
I think first and foremost, have some clarity around what you want to do and when you want to do it. Like if you've been in business for 10 years and you're thinking, well, I'm going to retire in 10 years. Well, there's no better time to start doing that than now, right? Because you've got a longer runway to create more value. But if you're thinking that you want to sell the business within the next 6 to 12 months, there's not a lot we can help you with, frankly, because you need time to be able to make the changes and drive value. It doesn't happen overnight. So, I mean, if you want to create more value and sell your business, given the current statistics in Canada around what's going to happen in the next 10 years, I think it's critically important that every business owner needs to think about, okay, how am I going to get out of my business? Because I'm not sure if you're aware, but the Canadian Federation of Independent Business re-released a report that they originally released in 2015. During COVID, they went back and talked to some business owners and did some follow-up after the COVID experience in Canada. And there was a significant shift in the results. Prior to COVID, when the first report first came out, the CFIB were reporting about 50 to 52% of business owners were hoping to transition out of their business within the next 10 years. After COVID, it became 76% of business owners that want to be out of their business within the next 10 years. So when you factor in that there was about 1.2 million businesses in 2018 that were privately owned that had between 4 and 100 employees, that's close to 800,000 businesses that want to leave in the next 10 years. The owners want out. So that's going to be pretty substantial. It's going to have a major impact on communities all across Canada. And my concern, and this is what drives my why, is my concern has always been the smaller centers. What happens when 8 out of 10 businesses go out of business in Stettler or in Provost or in Wainwright? That's going to have a huge impact in that community from a number of perspectives. Employment, housing, tax base, you name it. It could decimate communities.
That goes even right down to, I read a statistic from CFIB that for every dollar spent at a small to medium-sized business, 66 cents stays in the community. So when you're talking about that, it also does that in my head going, what about our hockey teams? What about all of our school fundraisers? All of that.
Exactly. Right. Communities are going to be hollowed out if we don't find a way to solve this problem effectively and efficiently. And it's way better to buy an existing business than to start a new one. Because we also know what the statistics are around starting a business, right? So if we can find ways to transition businesses to people in the community by creating value and creating systems and processes to make it easier to run that business, my gosh, I think we could have a huge, really successful wealth transition in the next 10 to 15 years.
I see it as a win-win. Win for the person wanting to get
Yes.
out, and a huge win for the new entrepreneur that's taking on a business that already has all of that set into place. We
Yeah.
somewhat talked
I
about
guess.
having the morals and the culture of the business and the manuals and the staff and the clients. Like those are all, yes, you're buying it, but it is given to you. That is huge.
It is. And it's really scary when we consider that we have seen so many times in this province, particularly, a multinational coming in and buying a small company in a community. And then a few years later, making the decision, oh, it doesn't make sense because of NAFTA, or it doesn't make sense because of the Canadian dollar, or it doesn't make sense because it doesn't fit into our corporate core structure, that we need to close that business down and move it. I mean, I've seen that numerous times here in Alberta where a company was bought out by somebody from outside the province, and then they ultimately end up shutting it down, and then the employees have got no place to go. it has really devastated some communities in this province.
Absolutely. We see it around us all the time.
Yep.
I am a strong believer of supporting your small and local small businesses. Which is a whole nother debate. What is a small business? But
Yeah.
I don't think we have time for that one today. Robert, I so much appreciate you coming on and so many great tips for our viewers, as well as how do our clients get a hold of you?
They can reach me through my email, which is rwelke@mexit.ca, or they can give me a call, 587-577-9380, or they can look us up at our website, which is mexit.ca.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming on and spending a little bit of time with us.
Robyn, thank you for having me. I've enjoyed our conversation. Look forward to many more.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All right. Have a good